Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in again. Today we're going to take a look at the lower body motion in the golf swing with a focus on the lead knee and how much it moves in towards the golf ball there. There's a common pattern that I see in a lot of players that really hinders their performance, so looking forward to sharing that with you. Hopefully you'll find something here that helps you with your game. So this video was actually prompted by a question from another coach. He mentioned that a number of players that had been in to see him recently had had quite excessive movement with the lead knee in towards the midline of the stance early in their golf swing. So a pattern that would look like this from down the line. Often a pattern that when I see in players, and it is quite a common pattern that you'll see, is that the lead hip will move with the knee and they will get air underneath their left heel or their lead heel quite early, and often accompanied with thrust of the pelvis, which for me, when I see thrust of the pelvis moving closer to the ball in the start of the backswing, it's a killer for players being able to load well into the trail side in backswing. So we really want to avoid thrust of the pelvis in the backswing in the golf swing. So we're going to go over a couple of cues today to help players with that movement. We're also going to hit on a few times when allowing the knee to have more movement and allowing the heel to lift could be helpful for players as well. Okay, so first let's look at improving movement. Whenever I'm looking at a particular segment in a video or in a swing that looks like it's maybe moving in a way that's not too helpful, I'm going to take a close look at the segments above and below that segment, so the immediate segments above and below. So today we're looking at the knee, so I'm going to present a couple of ideas around how we could move around ankle and foot and the lead hip, it obviously being the segment above and the segment below, okay, to help improve the movement of the knee. So first of all, let's start off with the foot. So in the movement where we kind of get into the toe too early and the knee appears to move in very early, that whatever pressure we start with as setup in the heel, it's moving really quickly towards the instep and towards the toe of the foot. So one piece of feedback I'll often present to players as a concept they may be able to use to improve movement in this area is to just feel as though the pressure in the heel, whatever pressure they have at address, stays there a little longer and moves slowly towards the instep of the lead foot as the club moves through backswing, so that when they get to a point in backswing where they're about to complete their turn, they're able to push off the instep of their foot to complete their turn and load more into the trail hip and just feeling nicely loaded and ready to move into the downswing. So we want to get set up nice and even balance from left foot to right foot, even balance from heel to toe, and then instead of it moving so quickly into the toe, feel as though the pressure slowly moves towards the instep and towards the big toe of the left foot. So if say we were left arm parallel to the ground, then we're in a position to just push and load even more into your hip, get more into a nice turn to the top of backswing. So we're learning to push in the right time rather than in setup there getting quickly into that toe, quickly onto the right side and not really getting any load. So that's a feel, I guess, or a concept you could use around the foot. One of my favorites though is the lead hip, and before going into the movement on the way in backswing, the lead hip, let's just make sure we're set up well, because a common error I'll see a lot of players do is sit into their trail hip and not be in equal bends. So just taking fingers inside the hips there and going into a hip hinge and feeling like you're pinching each of your fingers the same amount, just making sure you're in a nice setup there from a structural standpoint is going to help you to move well around the hip on the way back. And you can see there I'm keeping the fingertips in the hip joint there as I turn. So instead of now the hip and the knee working very fixed as it did, now I'm getting the pelvis to glide more around the femur there in backswing, and they're working more independently. And you can see when I do that, that really presents an opportunity for me to not thrust towards the ball. Okay, it also really helps with the previous feel of making sure the pressure stays longer in the heel and moves slower towards the toe. So you could use just that feel, you could go with the foot feel, or you could incorporate both into your swing and then just focus on the pressure. Instead of being so quickly moving to the right foot, it's more like a nice smooth move up to the top of backswing, as far as the pressure moving and getting loaded into that right side. Okay, so there's a couple of ideas that you could use to kind of work on the way you load in backswing and improve that movement around the lead knee. I did say I'd touch upon when more of a look of excessive movement and a lift of a heel could be good for players. So you often see this a lot on the PGA Tour, or even if you were to look at long drive. If a player is moving well through backswing and then they get to the top of the backswing, if they push harder off the instep of the foot there, off the toe, that's only going to help load more. It's only going to help lengthen the backswing. So if you were a player that was looking to really hit one another 10-15 yards, you could work on that swing there, but making sure that there's a focus on moving well through backswing and then going for that extra push where you might get that little bit of air under your heel there at the top of your backswing. Okay, so when working on improving the move, when working on moving into the backswing, getting the right load there, personally for me, I like to work on the feels away from the ball, getting a clear feel of how that feels, how it feels to interact with the ground, moving that way, being aware of how much my knee moves in, how it feels around the hip, and then working into a practice swing that connects me to how I'm going to get from that move on the way back to where I want to be in delivery. And then once I'm clear, then I'm going to walk into the shot, making sure I'm in equal bends in the hips, being super precise with setup position here, and then from there maybe a rehearsal and then hit. Okay, so if you've noticed in some of your own swings a lot of activity around that lead knee, just check how quickly you're shifting your pressure from one foot towards, first of all, the other, but also how quickly it's moving from heel to toe. Also, just check the position that you're in at address in your hips, and then feel as though you're able to separate the movement of the pelvis working around the femur, and see how that helps you with your swing.